The rooftop air carried that perfumed chill you only find in southern Georgia at dusk, honeysuckle and ambition. Champagne flutes shimmered under string lights, and the skyline of Savannah blinked against the horizon like an audience applauding our curated legacy. 15 years. That's what the plaque said on the velvet easel beside the stage. Advanced cybersecurity, 15 years of impact. I stood still as camera flashes lit the space around me. I smiled the way a queen does, measured, composed, proud. My navy silk dress clung like armor. Bennett took the mic, perfect as ever in his tailored suit. "Tonight is about one woman," he said, voice velvet smooth. "The woman who stood by me through it all." The crowd turned. I lifted my glass, smiled again. Someone whispered near the bar, "She's the spine behind the suit." Flashbulbs, laughter, applause, but in my head only silence. I thought I had built a fortress, but it was just glass-painted stone. As the first firework burst over the river, my phone buzzed. One text, no name, just words. "The person beside you is counting down to your fall." The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, save for the warm glow leaking from the kitchen. I paused for a moment, hoping maybe a cake, maybe flowers, a single candle, but laughter broke the illusion. Inside, Bennett and Tess Lynn swirled wine with friends. I froze on the stairs, fingers clutching the railing. Lena ran into the room, wrapping her arms around Bennett's legs. "Uncle Ben," she chirped. Tess Lynn giggled. Nobody noticed me, not even Lorraine, who poured drinks like she lived here. Erasure doesn't come with slaps. It comes with silence. In the kitchen, a small box sat alone on the marble island. Notag. I opened it. Inside was a photograph, Bennett and Tess Lynn, locked in a kiss at the Ritz-Carlton downtown. The timestamp didn't lie. A single line printed across the bottom. "It's not their fault." You handed him the key. Lorraine entered without pause, eyes cool as slate. "Next time," she said, brushing past me, "knock before entering your own life." The sun filtered through blinds that morning, soft and cruel. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I backed up every hard drive in the office. I encrypted Lena's medical records. Then I made coffee. At 10:37 a.m., my assistant called. "Amaris, there are 2 FBI agents in the lobby. They have a federal warrant." I met them in my conference room. Agent Jake Murphy, gruff voice, polite menace, slid the document across the table. "Breach of classified cybersecurity data," he said. "Internal whistleblower. Bogashe." I looked at the signature line. No shock registered. "Do you have legal counsel?" "I won't speak without one," I replied, voice even ice-wrapped in silk. They left. I didn't exhale. I retrieved my offline drive, the one hidden in the fireproof drawer behind the paneling, the one Bennett didn't know existed. In war, you don't scream. You catalog. I logged into my private laptop. The server history didn't lie. Bennett's login. Midnight access to the firm's secured network. He hadn't even tried to cover his trail. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I waited. I watched. At Lena's school, Tess Lynn was in the pickup line. "Just doing a favor," she chirped to the teacher. Lena climbed into the back seat. "Why does Daddy say you're always spying?" I smiled at her in the rearview mirror. "Sweetheart, watching isn't spying. It's surviving." I remembered what my father once told me. The quiet woman sees the furthest. That night, I installed covert monitoring software on Bennett's tablet. Legal, under Georgia law, shared property. Every password he'd ever used synced like clockwork. Hurt sharpens the mind. It did mine. The kitchen was quiet save for the tap 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 of rain on the glass. I found Bennett asleep on the couch, one arm flung over his face. His phone buzzed softly beside him, silent, smug. I stood over him. My throat tightened. My hand stayed loose. Then I picked up the throw blanket from the armrest and draped it gently over his shoulders. Even betrayal doesn't erase my humanity, I thought. But I'll never be naive again. Lena patted in, rubbing her eyes. Is Daddy sick? Ich bin zu kiss here forward. No, honey. He just forgot what love costs. Later that night, I sat at my desk. The text was still open. No name. No follow-up. I typed one word. Why? At 2:03 a.m., a reply came. Because they did it to me too. 3 days had passed, but my body still moved like it was trapped in the moment I read that text. The house was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I sat in my study, light from the monitor casting shadows over the stacks of drives and labeled folders beside me. I'd slept 4 hours in 72. That didn't bother me. What did was knowing I had missed the signs. I cross-referenced Bennett's logins. One IP stood out, accessing my encrypted folders at 1:41 a.m. The location matched our guest network. The same timestamp appeared across mirrored backups. I pulled up a digital forensics tool Rowan once taught me how to use. Its dashboard flickered as the retrieval map lit up. Targeted file clusters, not random. There's something colder than betrayal. Calculation. My phone lit up. Encrypted text from Rowan. You were right to back everything up. I printed the logs, sealed them in a fireproof lockbox. Then I stared at the last entry on the terminal. Bennett had used a masked alias to download files tied to a military contractor. I reached for the old photo on my shelf, Bennett and me, Lake Superior the weekend he proposed. The frame had been cracked for years. I had never replaced it. Maybe that was the warning. The knock came just after lunch. A courier, polite but indifferent, handed me an envelope stamped urgent. I opened it, fingers calm. Custody hearing. Ex parte motion. Holden Rives, Bennett's attorney, filed on grounds of mental instability. My mouth went dry. Attached was a psychiatric report, my name but none of my words. Diagnosed PTSD, unfit parental judgment. The signature? Dr. Malcolm Cray. There was also a witness statement. Lena expressed fear of mother's emotional outbursts. I stood still, didn't scream, didn't shatter the glass in my hand, though I thought about it. Instead, I walked to my desk, dialed Dr. Cray's office. The receptionist hesitated, then quietly said my file had been accessed 6 days ago. I hadn't authorized anything. My HIPAA release form was forged. I had trusted Bennett once. I had told him about the night in college when fear nearly undid me. He'd held my hand and said, "You need rest, not shame." Now, that story had been twisted into a weapon. They used my healing to paint me dangerous. I hung up. I didn't cry. I wrote down everything, step by step, because every lie leaves a trail. By sunrise, the news had found me. Rowan sent a link. Private audio leaked to the media. Edited. I could hear my voice screaming, "Don't touch me!" But the context was gone. It was from a fight with Lorraine years ago when I discovered she had rerouted funds behind my back. I had been defending my company. Now I sounded unhinged. The ticker read, "Unstable tech CEO faces custody battle." Rowan called. You need to go on offense. No, I said. You don't put out fire by burning the house. I pulled up the metadata from the leak. The file had been edited on Ethan's device. A MacBook registered to the Hale Trust's IT asset log. I didn't release it. I logged it. I would let it sit like coiled wire. Press might run with noise, but the court would need evidence. That night, I went to Lena's school play. Stayed in the back row. Hood up. Didn't wave. Protecting someone means stepping back when needed, not stepping in for pride. The next morning, I sat across from a handwriting analyst in a quiet law office. The room smelled of toner and coffee. I handed her the printed diagnosis. She adjusted her glasses. The pen pressure's wrong, she said. Slants don't match. Ink density suggests multiple applications, classic forgery. She slid the original back to me. This was written by someone trying to mimic your vulnerability, but they underestimated your spine. It was Teslin. I knew it in my bones. It's one thing to lie, I said. It's another to write lies with someone else's pain. I filed the findings under seal. Georgia law made forgery a felony. I didn't alert the press. Not yet. This isn't about humiliation. This is about correction. At sunset, Lena sat at the kitchen counter, drawing quietly. I poured tea, the kettle's whistle still in my ears when she looked up. Daddy says you hate being touched because you're broken. My hand trembled. The cup nearly tipped. I walked over, knelt beside her, took her small hand in mine. I'm not broken, I said gently. I'm healing. There's a difference, but it takes silence to listen to that difference. She nodded like she didn't fully understand, but she would. Someday. I didn't correct her. I corrected the seed, because trauma should never be passed down as heritage. That night, I opened the frame from our hallway. Behind the photo, a sealed USB I had hidden years ago, the one labeled in Sharpe, in case of silence. I plugged it in, and there it was. Ethan and Rebecca, a full recording, discussing plans to collapse my custody standing before the next audit season. Voices clear, malicious, methodical. I didn't flinch. I labeled the file. Then I looked out the window. They thought they were clever, but the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to last. The courier van rattled into the dim Atlanta morning as I handed over the sealed envelope addressed to Holden Rives. Fingers steady, breath steady. Inside, the full recording, the documents, the timestamps. The dispatch slip was tracked, with duplicates going to the judge's chambers under official evidence motion. Outside the glass window, dawn broke slow and steady, indifferent to the war I had lit. I whispered to myself, you don't stab the darkness. You switch the lights on. The package locked in chain of custody. I didn't celebrate. I just left. By mid-afternoon, my phone buzzed. Rowan. Flight plan terminated. He's grounded. Ethan Morrison tried to board a private jet under a fake name. Instead, he got flagged. A panic move, predictable. But he didn't disappear quietly. He left behind a flash drive. The media ran the leak instantly, an edited clip accusing me of coercive surveillance. My image flickered on the screen as unstable tech CEO. I watched with cold eyes. I didn't reply publicly. I forwarded metadata logs, chain of custody receipts, everything proving the leak was tampered. Rowan told me quietly, people believe first what feels real, but facts endure. I held those facts tight. I didn't court headlines. I courted truth. In the courthouse hallway 3 days later, I stood in neutral tones, tailored blazer, crisp shirt. Nerves wouldn't help. Bennett sat opposite under bright, fluorescent lights, isolation in his posture. Rebecca's face had lost its petals. Too much weight. Too many nights. I watched her shift when I walked in. I didn't acknowledge. I just opened the case folder, slid the transcript across the bench. My voice was calm. You didn't break me. You tried to make me unknowable. The room stayed silent. Holden Rives withdrew the custody motion then and there. Not victory, but pause. Relief bloomed in Lena's eyes when I stepped into the hallway, brushed a lock of hair from her forehead. Even if the world splits, your home is still me, I told her, steady and soft. Back in our apartment after the court date, Lena asked quietly from across the couch, "Did you hate Dad?" I closed the distance, knelt beside her. She felt small. No, I said, but I stopped lying about the kind of love we both deserved. She hesitated, then hugged me tight, no questions, no accusations. Just her warmth. That night, I realized truth can heal, even when trust is broken. The next morning, I walked into the lawyer's office, carrying a manila folder and the original USB. I placed both inside a safe deposit box, naming Lena as beneficiary, effective at age 21. I signed a new will, simple, clean. Under Georgia law, it was airtight. No vindictive clauses. Just one final note. Everything I didn't say was for your peace. When the lawyer asked if I wanted a letter included, I shook my head. No. She'll know. By then she'll know. Outside the building, I paused under the sun. The weight inside the box felt lighter than the fear I'd carried for months. I didn't shout triumph. I didn't toast with champagne. I just stepped forward, silent and free. My phone chimed. A new email. Subject line read settlement offer. Hail Family Trust. I didn't open it. Not yet.